We're going to start with that Cowboys-Packers game, which still has a lot of people flummoxed. Dak Prescott and the Cowboys hosting the Packers in Super Wild Card Weekend. It's a place they play well, but the final minute of the first quarter, Cowboys down 7-0. Prescott's pass intercepted by Jair Alexander.
This is great. You watch the way they layered the bunch, and Jair Alexander follows the whip route of Brandon Cooks, and he outfights him for the football.
Great field position for the Packers here. Ensuing Green Bay possession, second quarter, second and goal, and Aaron Jones up the middle for the TD.
Yeah, honestly, this game got to 14-0. You see Curse on the sidelines. At home, I'm thinking this game feels over.
Yeah, Jones finished with 3 touchdowns. Later in the second quarter, same score. Jordan Love hitting Dontavian Wicks, the 20-yard touchdown
Play
pass.
of his career. Sees the pressure, changes the protection, falls away. Beautiful throw.
Jerry Jones had to turn his back. More on that. Ensuing Dallas possession. Prescott throwing, intercepted by Darnell Savage.
He throws this football into a fire zone. Darnell Savage in 3-receiver hook.
Fuzzy.
Reads his eyes, gets to number 2, who was CeeDee Lamb. Dak forced that ball in. Pick 6, Green Bay Packers.
I mean, wild. The Packers up 27-0. Third quarter, Packers up 34-16 at this point. Love finding Luke Musgrave wide open for the 38-yard touchdown here. It just continued on and on, Dan, and everyone's scratching their heads trying to figure out how this could happen.
This is called Y-Leak. So many teams have run this over the past couple years. It's the same action they had a ton of success running the football off of, completely wide
Boy,
open.
that ain't wide leak. That's wide open.
Jerry Jones said rats. All right, let's hear from Mike McCarthy and more after this loss.
We put ourselves in position to play a home playoff game. You know, it was we had a great opportunity. You know, we clearly picked the wrong day to have a bad day.
Just shocked, honestly. From the beginning of the game, yeah, we got beat. There's no other which way around it, no way to sugarcoat it. Obviously, I didn't play well, and shock.
I don't want to rank it, but I will tell you that I'm floored. This is beyond my comprehension.
Yeah, a lot of people felt the same way, Jerry, to be totally honest. The Cowboys have now gone 13 straight playoff appearances without reaching the conference championship. That's the longest streak by any franchise since conferences were created in 1970. You heard Dak owning it at the press conference the second that it was all over. And a little part of you kind of feels bad for him, at least I do. But Marcus, when you look at the holistic situation here, what happened to Dak and that offense?
I get your point, Boogie. I don't. You're making $40+ million a year to go do a job. Here's the other thing. Like, so Dak played timid. He played unsure of himself, and that correlates to playing scared if you ever played football.
Sure.
This was an opportunity to come out in a playoff game against the Green Bay Packers, which we thought you would be able to have your way from an offensive standpoint, and he was the reason. And look, I know we're going to have a conversation about defense, and I get it because the defense was hard as well. But I started the season out talking about moments for Dak Prescott. I even went as far as to say the regular season doesn't even matter for him, right? And for as good of a regular season as he had, this is where the judgment is made, and for Dak Prescott to perform like this. Because we could talk about the defense all we want, but if he would have played better early in the game changes.
Sure.
And Green Bay doesn't play from that level of comfort, and he was a part of the problem.
When you think about the head coach's future, that's going to be a big piece of this conversation. So Dak Prescott and Jerry Jones were asked about Mike McCarthy last night. Listen to this.
In that case, it should be about me as well, honestly. I mean, that guy, I've had the season that I've had because of him. This team has had the success that they've had because of him. And I understand it's about winning the Super Bowl, and that's the standard of the league and damn sure the standard of this place. So I get it, but add me to the list in that case.
A lot of things to reflect on, but I haven't done that at all, and haven't reflected at all on anything about coaching or any of that. And we just are amazed that we're sitting here without another game this coming weekend. I am.
Amazed, but not in a good way. A loss like this gets a ton of attention as we bring in Adam Schefter. Adam, what do you know about Mike McCarthy's future in Dallas?
Laura, it's the question that everybody around the league is asking right now, and it's a situation where basically people have said all along that Mike McCarthy would be judged by how the Dallas Cowboys' last game of the season would go. And here we have it going to where it did not go the way that they wanted it to, and it flamed out. And now people are gathering together to see whether Mike McCarthy will survive into the season. When you review a game like yesterday's. It's a hit for Mike McCarthy. It's a hit for Dak Prescott. It's a hit for the Dallas defensive coordinator, Dan Quinn. Everybody takes some of the blame in this particular case, and it could impact everybody. But the truth of the matter is, the decision belongs to Jerry Jones, Stephen Jones. We've not heard anything from them yet today, and it looks like right now, later in the day, with the wild card games about to begin, we may not get a decision on the Dallas Cowboys head coach today. It may go into tomorrow.
Yeah, Adam, as soon as you know anything, I'm sure you'll let us know. You're with us all show. We're here for 2 hours, by the way, up until 5 p.m. So we get an extra time here ahead of this wild card game in Tampa. Marcus, you know, when you think about how this is all going to go, I think a lot of people struggle because of the success that McCarthy teams have had during the regular season. But it's the postseason that ends up coming to fruition here and being a negative thing once again. Should he continue on as the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys?
No, you got to make a change. You got to make a change because Dallas' whole plan was playoff football and how would they perform. The judgment is not being made on the regular season. I got caught up into that. I talked about Mike McCarthy winning 12 games, which is hard to do in the NFL, by the way, 3 years in a row. And you think about where this team is now, I came to this conclusion during the game because they were so unprepared. They
both sides of the football.
Both sides of the football. And unfortunately, it falls on the head coach. We will have our conversations about Dan Quinn. And I've always said, players get coaches fired. That's what, usually in this league, the players' inability to execute get coaches fired. But the overall coaching disparity between Mike McCarthy and Matt LaFleur was huge.
Yeah.
And if I'm going to say that Brandon Staley should be out, based on playoff performances and how you get your team ready to play, I'm going to allocate that to Mike McCarthy as well, which is not easy to say because it's like, again, 36 wins in 3 years. A lot of people are signed up for that if you told them. But you cannot go into this situation unprepared with what you know about the expectations of Dallas.
Mina.
I just can't get over the performance of the offense against their defense. The Cowboys' defense deserves a lot of blame, but we're talking about Mike McCarthy, who, of course, oversees the offense. And it wasn't like Joe Barry's defense did anything that different. They were playing zone. They were playing off.
Yep.
And yet, can you recall a snap when you watched the tape where they looked confused by what Dallas was doing? Whereas on the other side of the field, the Dallas defense was in a perpetual state of confusion. Yeah, it felt predictable. It felt like kind of what I was saying earlier. They were just leaning too much on matchups, concepts that had worked all year. Green Bay's defense had a beat on some of those concepts, by the way, because they were predictable. And if your whole narrative this year was I'm taking over the offense and that's how we're going to go further, to put up this kind of clunker against a defense that had been terrible all season.
This is supposed to be a shootout if Dallas can't stop Green Bay.
Exactly, and that's not what happened.
Yeah, and you look at the landscape of coaching right now and you think about who's available, the question you have to ask yourself is who wants to come to Dallas that's a better coach than Mike McCarthy? Who do you get? Is it the Mike Vrabels? Can you go after Bill Belichick? Because we all know part of coaching in Dallas is also dealing with their owner. And I don't believe that Jerry Jones and Stephen Jones are going to try to figure out a way to identify the next up-and-comer. Right, they aren't necessarily going to go look for the Ben Johnson or the Bobby Slowick. I believe they're going to want a proven commodity. Who wants to come there? And the other thing is this.
Yeah.
You win 36 games in 3 years, we probably aren't talking about whether or not you should lose your job. We got to remember, Jerry Jones has to start making decisions now based on you only live once, because he doesn't know how much longer he will be in this position
based on what he
to try to win a Super Bowl. And if that's the case, you have to go big now when it comes to your head coach, but also your roster.
But that's my thing. You can no longer say the only thing that I still want to accomplish or get done is win a Super Bowl and stay as is. There's no possible way that anybody is going to believe that. Facts over feelings. Dak Prescott and Mike McCarthy together are 13-15 versus teams that end the season with a winning record. 13-15. Let's be honest about if they run it back. Coaching, when it comes to, like, are you giving your team an advantage or not? Versus the Rams, do they have one schematically? No. Detroit, no. San Francisco, no. Green Bay, no. Minnesota, no. And shoot, depending on who Washington gets.
But here's my question, Dan. You're watching all of these teams. They seem to mimic each other in the way they approach offense. Why can't Mike McCarthy do that?
Because Mike McCarthy knows that one system. the West Coast. And it's a really good system. And again, they had a lot of success this year. But when you get into the playoffs, and there is a very specific formula of how you have to play to win, you get exposed. And that's exactly what happened.
And I know the conversation revolves around Mike McCarthy before is as responsible for this.
Yeah.
Then he
owned it, right?
Like
it makes me think they don't make adjustments either, and we've seen that too many times. And Mike McCarthy and the Cowboys have gone exactly 12-5 in each of the last 3 seasons. Those 36 wins, the most by any team in a 3-season span that failed to reach a conference title game once. That's the problem, right? Dallas and McCarthy are 1-3 in the playoffs in the last 3 seasons. Ed Werder down there in Dallas today, where shockingly, I can't believe I'm saying this, even after watching that highlight for like the 10th time. They were cleaning out their lockers there, Ed, and the players getting ready to go. You talked with them about how they feel about their head coach, Mike McCarthy. What did they tell you?
Yeah, you mentioned it, an achievement that becomes an indictment. In the aftermath of one of the worst and most unexpected playoff defeats in franchise history, the Cowboys began the process of officially closing another failed season. Owner Jerry Jones addressed the players in a team meeting before they met individually with head coach Mike McCarthy for exit interviews. The players recognize their 3 12-win seasons are meaningless because of that 1-3 postseason record they have with McCarthy. They also seem to realize their 16-point loss to the Packers could potentially jeopardize McCarthy being allowed to coach the final year of his contract next season.
I mean, this is one of the hardest jobs in America. I mean, the quarterback and the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys. So, I mean, I feel like he's done a tremendous job. You know, everything that I guess all things in consideration. It's kind of hard. A lot of media. A lot of people against you, all the outside noise, and we kind of just made sure that we stuck our arms around each other and stayed together. So, I mean, I think he did a really good job. I mean, he helped me a lot, with my career, and I feel like I learned a lot with him.
Man, Mike McCarthy, man, that's my guy, man. He the one that always gave me an opportunity, especially coming this year on the offensive end. I just got mad respect for Mike, man. And whatever he do, he got my blessing.
Well, I asked Jordan Lewis, the cornerback voted by teammates as the Ed Block Courage Award winner for his inspired return from a career-threatening foot injury, how he would characterize the message Jones delivered to the players. Lewis said the 81-year-old team owner emphasized the urgency to win now, telling the players that this is the Dallas Cowboys. They had everything lined up to win, and they can't keep allowing this to be how every season ends. There is no known time frame, Laura, for when Jones and McCarthy will begin their discussions and make decisions about their respective futures. Defensive coordinator Dan Quinn does remain scheduled to interview with the Commanders, Titans, Panthers, and Chargers regarding their head coaching vacancies via Zoom beginning tomorrow.